Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence, and a big mahalo for joining me as we get a chance to speak with a gifted artist whose talents as a drummer and painter are equaled by his passion for helping those in need. He also makes very cool clothes for kids. With a rich, inspiring Cuban-American background, he's had a lengthy career that included recording with icons like Chuck Berry, Stevie Nicks, and two legends who are Hawaii State residents, Pat Benatar and Alice Cooper. He was even inspired to take up golf by Maui Ambassador of Goodwill, Willie Nelson. But he's best known to millions of fans for being drummer of the legendary group, performing two tour opening shows this Thursday and Friday, February 11th and 12th at the Blaisdell Arena in Honolulu. It is a pleasure to welcome Bon Jovi's Tico Torres. Aloha, Tico.
Hey, aloha. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, and both a big aloha and mahalo for being available.
Looking forward to coming there.
I bet you are. And so would I be right in saying, Tico, that you have not performed in the islands since a pair of January 1989 dates at the Blaisdell, or have you been back for some private appearances?
No, I've been back for just personal stuff, on vacations and stuff. But no, actually, we haven't been back in a long time. It's well overdue, I must say.
And when you are thinking back to that last visit, if you can remember the last time that you were here to perform, any memories of that?
Oh, it was a great crowd. I remember everybody was on their, they weren't in their seats; they were on top of them, and singing along. And I guess people are happy when there's palm trees around. The big difference between playing Helsinki, Finland, and Hawaii is thousands of miles apart there.
And so really that's something about playing in a tropical environment for you. That's your impression of it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I live in Florida now, and Cuban descent, and it's just you wake up in the morning and you're just happier. As I'm sitting in Seattle at this moment.
You can really compare and contrast, no question.
You have to look at what affects you immediately in the day, and I must say I love it in Hawaii. I've always said, what a great place to live, and the people are happy and wonderful, and I've always enjoyed it there.
Where have you gone on your own when not coming here with Bon Jovi?
The Big Island and Maui, and I stopped in Kauai as well, but I stayed a lot in Maui.
And is that, if you have a favorite island amongst the islands?
For me, yeah. If I was to take a residence, there's a little bit of, it's not so quiet. You have a little bit of both worlds.
Which one are you saying? Here on Oahu?
No, Maui, actually.
Maui would be your favorite?
Yeah.
Okay, and for the reason of what is it? The balance?
Yeah, the balance of, it's not too isolated yet. It's isolated enough.
When were you last here?
And musicians that live there.
Oh, and quite a few musicians, as you heard in the introduction to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. It's a great resting ground, I think.
When was the last time that you were in the state?
Last time I was there was about, it's been a while. It's about, I guess, around 7 years ago.
7 years. And where did you last go?
I went to the Big Island, and I went to Maui.
And what's your enduring memory of your trip to the Big Island?
I think the people. The people are very, very sweet. And, of course, the Big Island is just, to see, the earth constantly forming and reforming itself is something that you don't really get where I come from.
Did you make it over and take a look at the volcano? Did you see some actual lava, magma?
No, nothing hot, everything cold.
And if, you've said something that I just think is worth noting. You've been around the world, and perhaps, Tico, you're one of the better people to ask a question like this because of the experience you've had as an international traveler, and there must be very few parts of the world that you have not visited. If you were to describe as that kind of guy who's had the experiences of traversing the globe, and as you well know, very few people have probably been to the amount of places you have. You said that the people here are different. Can you just try to describe what is different about Hawaii? Your honest impression. You say that. What do you mean?
Well, I think it's a Hawaiian culture. It's a culture within, and it's named in the United States, but it's a culture that's been around for many, many years. And it's an island life, which being Cuban, you sort of get that feeling. It's a different spectrum being Spanish, of course, the Hawaiian, but I get that feeling of there's almost like a fraternity, which is removed from the rest of the United States, as different islands are.
Interesting you point that out and also reference your Cuban-American heritage because, as you may or may not know, Bob Marley is enormously popular here in the islands, and you've almost sort of hit a nail on the head when you mentioned the fraternity, if you will.
Yeah. As you know, I used to visit Jamaica in 1970, 71, around there, and when with Jimmy Cliff and stuff like that, and of course you saw it there in its primal state, musically, but you get that feeling everywhere you go, and when it comes to islands.
Wow, interesting. Definitely being able to connect your own heritage to that. When with someone who has as many live experiences as yourself, is there a reason that the Circle World Tour is set to start here in the islands? Is it more of a routing thing and it has less to do with the location, or is there anything to do with maybe starting it on a soft note or a warm note?
Well, the warm note doesn't hurt. We hadn't been there for a long time, and instead of if you're starting on the West Coast, that's as far west as we can start. And we figured, since we hadn't been a long time, we really wanted to get back there, and start the tour there, and then we come back and go to Seattle from there, and then start working our way down the West Coast and then over to the other side of the United States for the next couple of months. So, not for nothing, but we've always enjoyed playing there, and enjoyed the people, and it was when you start a tour, we get able to start it right there. It's a lot easier, as opposed to if you're riding in the United States and you bring the equipment there later and then coming back. So it makes a lot of sense.
And on top of that, you had the guts, the balls, I don't know what the right word is to say, but the thing about the Bon Jovi tour, which is vastly different from so many other outings, and potentially, I might say, even on the mainland, you have the guts, the foresight, the knowledge to know that you can put 2 shows on sale at once, 2 nights, back to back, as opposed to almost every band that I can think of in my 8 years of living here, Tico. They always do one, they wait for it to sell out, they add the second night. You guys, not even being here since 1989, prepared to return with that kind of bang.
Maybe it is balls. We hadn't been there, and there's a lot of people that want to see the show, so it was evident to us that why not do 2 nights, and also enjoy a little more of the accoutrements that the island has to offer. Really?
And does the rest of the band have that kind of passion? Has John said anything to you in particular, speaking of enjoying the island? Has he mentioned Hawaii at all?
What we talked about is we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it because John is, as you know or don't know, most of the guys in the band, except Richie and myself, live up in the Northeast, which is snow-ridden, very cold. I said we're in Seattle now, and so the opportunity to get some sun and enjoy the warm life is definitely favorable.
And certainly to escape what they're calling snowmageddon, or
exactly. Get the surfboard underfoot.
Snowpocalypse is another one.
Well, I've always said Hawaii is a great place to live. I've always wanted to. It's just too far removed from my family and friends. Otherwise, I would have moved there a long time ago.
And did you choose Florida as a way to get closer to the Cuban-American heritage, or is it in fact a way to get closer to warmth?
Both. I mean, Florida is chock full of Cubans and Latins, and it gives me a sense of home. I still have a lot of family there, and of course, there's nothing better than to wake up and have a palm tree staring you in the face.
Me and you both. That was one of my main inspirations for wanting to come here, and definitely there's something undeniable about palm trees, isn't there?
Well, yeah, it's God's gift to happiness, I think.
It is. I don't know if it's more because if you're an East Coast person like ourselves, because I grew up outside of Philly, but you do tend to appreciate them. And do you find that when you guys go on the road, your experiences are defined by the countries you're in, by climate, or are there memories you're rehashing from previous visits? Take me through your international experiences.
I think it's both. I mean, you always remember the crowds. I mean, but then there's the moments that stick out when you're playing Austria, and then you see the mountains and it's snowing on you, on the crowd, and when there's deluge, the sky's opened up, and there's a monsoon hitting, and you're playing Ireland, and the people are just wet. We're wet, and it just takes it to another level. Things do stick in your mind.
So they do stick in your mind as sort of your memory of it is affected by the geography and some of the weather that you have to encounter.
Yeah, and it's actually, if you embrace it, it's kind of cool.
Right. Now, and you have an experience of, like I had said, you've traveled the world in a way that few people really have. Along the way, where was it that you first discovered the reward of giving and harnessing your passions, your talents, your position in pop culture to do humanitarian and other forms of assistance to people in need?
That's bestowed on me from my family, I have to say, David, because although I'm an only child, I had many brothers and sisters. My grandmother and mother brought in 22 refugees from Cuba.
I've heard that.
And because of that, it was bestowed on me that that's the right thing to do. And I used to have to share my clothing, my room, whatever toys I had, with virtually strangers, but with a common goal, to survive. And I think I took that with me, and I try to help. I'm in a position I can, to be well known and to have, to have money to be able to help children. I always think that children are the ones I always wanted to help because they're the ones that could change the world, and also children don't have a choice in life. So a lot of times they've been dealt a bad hand. So if I can make it a little bit better for them, it's just a little something you could do.
So children are the inspiration, and they're kind of like animals the way you were describing them, in that innocence and the inability to defend or protect themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there are no bad kids. It's just bad parents and bad situations that the kids don't have parents. So if you have to show them some care and some love and nurture, and they turn into the great human beings that could actually help the world and change the world in their own right. But we need them to fix it.
Say that again?
I said we've messed it up, and we need them to fix it.
No question about that. It's just remarkable that you are able to do the things that you do, and I'm always curious what the inspiration is. So it is both twofold. It's one, it's the family background and having the experience of it was your mom or your grandmom helping the refugees?
Yeah, both.
Both. So you have this family side of you, which has influenced your ability to give and give back to people who are in need, and then you kind of couple it with a love for children. Have you been able to go to Cuba?
I won't go. I have been able to. It's illegal being American, but
sure.
I won't go for many reasons. To be a celebrity, and then once these invisible walls are thrown away, then I'll be the first one there. But I don't think it's a good political move at this point because Castro is still in power.
So what do you think about those music exchange programs that they do, where they have certain kinds of, whether it's orchestra or jazz bands, but they do sort of an exchange where there's an opportunity for musicians to sort of bridge that cultural chasm?
I think it's fantastic, Dave, but the problem is it's also censored over there. So lyrics are censored, and books are censored, and of course films are censored. Should music be censored? I believe not.
Sure. No, absolutely. So you think, so basically what you're saying is those exchange programs end up being something that maybe is more of a gift for the musicians involved, but the community at large in Cuba is removed from it by way of the censorship.
Yes. And you got to think there's tons of new generations there that haven't lived with don't know the history or know the history, but just haven't lived through it. And it's just nice that there's so many great musicians there that I'd like to see them open up and say what they feel. You know?
Right, instead of having to live in a culture like that. I was just always curious whether you had, and you would, when you think about the Caribbean, it being illegal to go to Cuba, there are still different ways that Americans can. Just as an example, if you're at an all-inclusive resort in Jamaica, a lot of the resorts, especially ones that are not operated by American companies, they'll do 1 or 2 day excursions to Cuba very easily. It's a quick flight over from Jamaica. So in your life, you've never even pondered going there and reconnecting. It's sort of the political realities are enough of a barrier. You just don't want to even be a part of it.
Yeah, for that reason. I mean, I remember I asked on a cultural expedition, and Andy Garcia was going and stuff. And at that point, I gave it good thought, and I just decided not to. And like I said, there'll be a time and a place for that.
Right. No, I have no doubt. Talk about your Tico Torres classic, and if you can, I've read it before, but if you wouldn't mind, for our listeners here, if you wouldn't mind sharing how Maui resident Willie Nelson got you golfing.
Well, I was over Willie's house in the United States, and at the time he owned a 9-hole golf course, and John and myself were over there, and we had something to eat, and he says, "You guys want to play golf?" And we never did. And he says, "Come on." So we went out with a 7-iron and a putter. And I never had any interest in the game, but here I am walking around with a musical icon on a beautiful afternoon and hitting this little white ball, which I kind of grown, started to adore the game. And, I got into it more and more and really enjoy it on my days off. I think it's a great vacation. It has a great integrity. It's a game that's been around for, since the 1500s. And there's really a lot to it. And, Willie's the man. And through that, I've done for many years the Tico Torres Classic, which is a golf tournament, and we raise money for children, and whether it's leukemia or autism or abuse. And I invite a lot of my celebrity friends that come in, and people buy foursomes and fivesomes, and we have a gala night before that. We raise a lot of money for the kids.
Give a plug to some of the celebrities who have lent their considerable talent and name recognition to doing good with you with the Tico Torres Classic.
There's so many. I mean, it's just about all the New York Giants. Oh, great baseball players. Alice Cooper as well. I mean, Huey Lewis. Guys in my group. Kyle MacLachlan, some actors. There's George Lopez. There's just so many guys that have rallied, and they just love, coming out to support.
I think that's really cool about you, and it does say a lot about the kind of person you are, which I'm not completely ignorant to. I was fortunate enough to meet you once in person. My very good friend, the legendary drummer Carmine Appice. Yeah. He and I were backstage at the Cream reunion at Madison Square Garden, and all of you guys were there except for John. And I think that it says there's two things about that, but the one thing that I just wanted to note to you, a lot of bands, when the business part is done, they go their separate ways. They don't spend a lot of personal time together. And what an impression, I guess, it makes on fans when you're out at an event, especially not anything to do with Bon Jovi, and almost the entire band show up together. And if you didn't know better, you'd have to say you guys were real friends.
We are real friends. And when the opportunity arises, we do a lot of things together. I mean, you got to think, we've been over 25 years, 26, almost 27 years together. And that's a lot of time together on the road.
Sure.
When we're away from each other, we try not to see each other. Only because everybody has family. Everybody has different ventures they want to go into, and it's wonderful to be able to do your own thing and come back and bring something new. In the past, we would vacation together. We would do everything. So when we get back, so we doing a record, we'd have nothing to write about because we're all living it. Mm. And so as age came on, and the older we got, and having families and stuff, it's added a lot of fuel and a lot more story lines to our lives that you can write about and enjoy.
Well, it does, and it's remarkable the way, again, I think it's a very positive experience to run into you guys like that because, A, everybody in the band is so down to earth and so defying the illusions or the impression that you get of what people who are stars are. And it's nice. It certainly does go hand in hand with your music.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're buddies. We're from blue-collar families. We're from the East Coast, and we grew up right next to New York City, and it was, it's the place where you had to be the best. So we always aspired to do that, and to this day, we don't take it for granted, and we try to work just as hard as we always did.
It's worth noting, and you guys really do carry yourselves like that. Tico, I'm a drummer too, and whenever I have the opportunity to speak with a drummer, I like to compare favorites, if you don't mind. I would like to tell you my two favorites, if you'll then tell me your two favorites.
Okay.
My very two favorite drummers, and I'm hoping you'll comment on them a little bit, would be, and they've both passed on, unfortunately, the great John Bonham and the great Cozy Powell.
My favorites as well. I was very good friends with Cozy. A wonderful drummer, a wonderful person. I never met John, but of course, you still listen to his music today, and it's still astounding as a percussionist. I'll give you mine too, although I'll include those because I always just try to hard. It's kind of hard to not name at least 100 of them.
That's true.
I'd say Elvin Jones, which also passed away.
Yep.
John Coltrane's band. He was like my mentor. I would sit next to him and hand him gin tonics and cool cigarettes, as he played, and just kind of hawked them.
You did, really?
Yeah. Well, living in New York, it was easy. Whenever he played the Vanguard, I went to him for lessons when he was at Joe Jones' studio, and he says, heard me play. He says, "No, I want you to come and listen to me." And I would just sit down and listen to him play with McCoy Tyner and Goodman and what he was playing. He wanted me to really respond on that. So he was a big I guess footnote in my life as a drummer.
Okay, no, he's massive. I have met him one time. In fact, he was on his way to the stage. Tico, he put his gigantic, massive hand right down on my left shoulder. I looked up right into his eyes.
Big man. And second drummer, I guess, I'll just say John Heisman from Coliseum.
Oh.
And always a great drummer. I saw him perform many times at the Fillmore East. And just a great technician, drummer, great feel.
Nice. No, that's not a name that I'm even familiar with.
Yeah, there's a band called Coliseum, and he's done many records with them.
I know the name of the band, but not the name of that drummer. Dennis Chambers, do you like him at all?
Oh yeah, and Dennis is a friend. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. It's great that you knew Cozy.
Drummers out here.
Say that again?
There's a lot of great drummers out here. There's a lot to learn from.
No, there are, and it's nice to hear. So those would be two of your definitive favorites. Mm-hmm. How did you discover painting was a passion, and what are you trying to express when you do it?
To me, it's something I could do on my own. I started painting when I was 5, sculpting, because we lived in New York City. I was born there. And I did that most of my life until music got in my veins, and when I was around 12. And I put the brushes down, and then I didn't go back to it for years later. It's so I could be. That's my spirituality coming out, where I don't need a band I'm with. As you know, being a drummer, you need a group to make music, and this is something I do on my own. And can't get arrested for it.
And so there's no. It's a sense of freedom, I guess, that you get out of doing it. And I hear you put on the classical music. It sounds great the way you describe it.
Yeah, it's my own creative zone. It's it's something you could do for the rest of your life. It's non-physical. It's just euphoric for me.
And if you had to pick a moment that to you defined the ultimate feeling of satisfaction with your career, perhaps jamming with someone, perhaps appearing at Giant Stadium, the Garden, I don't know where, it could have been Jakarta, Indonesia, for all I know. Is there a moment as you think back over the extraordinary career you've had when you were just sitting back and realizing, man, this is the moment, or perhaps all these years later, as I ask you that when you recount some of these moments, there's a defining moment?
No, there's too many defining moments. I think like a staircase. To this day, I still try as hard as I did when I was 16. And I think putting on a good show, at the end of the day when you're done, there's a sense of satisfaction because I kind of live for today and not in the past. But geez, there were so many great moments in our life, and we've been lucky enough to enjoy them and be part of it.
So nothing really sticks out of all of the experiences.
I mean, I can name a few. We've had the opportunity to you're playing in London, for instance. You have Elton John, you have Little Richard, you have guys from the Led Zeppelin band sitting in. You have I guess the musicians you grew up with and coming up on stage and you performing songs with them. Those stick out quite a bit, where it's actually, you're growing up listening to the music and now they're on stage with you.
Sure. No, so then there are. So I'm right, sort of. It may be, in fact, the jams that you've gotten to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be it. Is there finally, as a final question for you, is there a musician or are there musicians, artists, that you still crave to perform with and you have yet to work with, if even if they transcend the rock genre?
That's a good question. When I was younger, there was hundreds of them. No. I wouldn't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
So there's not a jazz guy. There's not like a B.B. King, or have you done that?
Well, no, I played on the same bill with B.B. Jammed with a lot of blues guys. And Chuck Rainey being the bass player, we used to hang together a lot. Somebody alive would have to be, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking, unless you have you are a very powerful man, and unless you can somehow get to resurrect people, no, I think they'd have to be someone that you could actually get your hands on and jam with.
They'd probably Clapton, or Gabriel.
Clapton or Gabriel. I'd never met Clapton.
Yeah, no, he's, I met him before. He's a wonderful, great musician.
Okay, so you have met him, just never had the opportunity to play with him.
No, never did. The drummer's name. When he got sick at one time, he was having food poisoning. He called me, and they were playing at the Meadowlands by us. And
a Clapton drummer?
Huh?
A Clapton drummer?
Yeah.
Steve Gadd?
No, not Gadd. Drummer before the one he has now. I'm sorry, it's morning and I can't think of his name.
And did you almost have a chance to sit in with Eric? Is that what happened, that the guy was ill?
Oh, yeah, I remember he looks like Sidney Poitier. He also played with, well, anyway, he called, I got food poisoning, he says, bring your stick bag, and I went down there and I just hung out as he was, getting through the set, and I'm just dying to jump up there. And I never got a chance to, but it was cool. I enjoyed the show.
Well, and maybe that inspired your the answer to the question there, that maybe Clapton would have to be that sort of guy.
Yeah, to be that close and then never get to jump up there and play. So it would have been cool.
Kind of like a tease.
Yeah.
Well, we're really looking forward to welcoming you back to the islands, and it's a great pleasure getting to speak with you. I certainly hope that you haven't minded this chat. I've really enjoyed getting to talk with you.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate your time and your listeners' time, and we're looking forward to coming out there.
Well, it's going to be great having you in town for the shows. Hopefully we'll get a chance to go back and briefly get to say hi to you while you're here.
Please do. Please come back and say hello.
I would like that, and a great pleasure speaking with Tico Torres from Bon Jovi. I wish you a very safe trip here.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Travel safe, my brother.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Aloha.
Okay, bye-bye. Hi, this is Tico Torres from Bon Jovi. Hello. Wait, let me start again. Aloha, this is Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, and you're listening to the only show on the world that really matters. And here's my friend, David Lawrence. Hi, this is... Okay. Aloha, this is Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, and I'm here on the only show that matters with David Lawrence. Aloha, this is Tico Torres, enjoying my favorite time of day, and happy 20 day, David Lawrence. Aloha, this is Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, enjoying my favorite time of day, happy 420 day with David Lawrence.
Awesome.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Aloha.
Okay, bye-bye. Aloha, this is Tico Torres from Bon Jovi, and you're listening to the only show on the world that really matters, and here's my friend, David Lawrence.